The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production.
Kev, I did it. I don't know why I'm whispering, but I'm a little bit concerned, obviously. Was it walls have ears, ears have walls, or whatever it is, that I got the X100V. And I did it in very much the same way that you have.
Did it come in a Tesco's carrier bag through the door?
No, it didn't go in a Tesco's carrier bag through the door. But I think Sam spotted it because yesterday, I didn't make it very obvious. I put a new strap on it and I had it round my body to go. I went out in the evening. She was going out to football, to play football, and I was going the other way with young Thomas to go do some pictures of the local wildlife park and the trains. And I had the lens pointed in towards my body so she wouldn't notice it. But she did. She's no fool. She knows what an X100 looks like.
That is very, very derogatory towards Sam's observation skills.
Well, yeah, but also the other thing was that Thomas, you see, because he loved the X100F and he lamented that when I parted with it. And yesterday he kind of spied it because he knows I've been using the X Pro 1 with a vintage lens on it, and he saw it and I thought, oh no, he's actually now he's going to break the news that I bought this thing, and he looked at it, he said, that's a really small lens. I said, yes, it's a pancake lens, darling. I've just put it on. And then turned it away from him. He knows it's an X100V as well.
Dear me.
How did you hide it from Gemma?
I can't remember. I was drunk. It probably came after breakfast one morning. I just kind of shoved it in a cupboard or something.
These things we do, Kev.
The FujiCast.
Oh, well, here we are again, another Monday. You and your questions from our electronic mailbag. And, of course, also through the FujiCast Facebook group that you're welcome to become a part of. If you'd like to send a mail in, send to click@fujicast.co.uk, or indeed you can send it through the Facebook group, as I say. If you're a Fujifilm shooter, fantastic. If you're not, don't worry. It's a big community. Whatever flavour you shoot, you're very welcome. And if you too are hiding an X100 somehow, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Thank you to those friends that are supporting us on Patreon, which for the price of a coffee keeps the show growing and going. There's Kev's Book of the Week this week. Is it a tome of an affair this week? Kev, what is it?
No, it's a little old fella. Thames is one of the Thames and Hudson's photo file books. Little pocket book you can stick in your handbag or your whatever you've got if you're a man, which is all about Elliot Owit.
I'm not quite sure you want to be called a little old fella. And we have Carl Hare back for part 2, talking about video. That was very successful last week. Thank you very much for those that have sent questions in on the back, and of course on the Facebook page now in the group there is another thread, if you like, that you can join in with Carl on if you have any questions at all following what you hear from last week's show and from this week's.
Which you actually, when you put that thread up about Carl, you bumped off the main questions thread.
Did I?
Disappeared. Yeah, it went all the way to 7 months ago.
No, I thought you can have more than one announcement though, can't you?
You can, but you can only have one at the top. So the other ones disappear unless people click on the announcements tab. They won't see it.
All right. Oh, that's quite. What a mistake and a maker.
Yeah, awful.
Sorry. Take my one off then. Carl won't mind. Put it as a normal post and we'll just keep joining in with it and it will keep going up to the top.
Carl's one is still in the announcements. So if you want to ask Carl anything specific about these the video stuff, then go to the announcements tab in the Facebook page and it will be there.
Give me one of your wah, wah, wah. Basic understanding of Facebook. Clearly not with me. Sorry, Kev.
Next time.
What an idiot. I'm trying these. I'm practicing these Irish words now. Egypt, that is a proper Irish word, isn't it? As I'm almost going through the process now of going for the green passport. Kev,
are you?
Yeah.
Where's your Irish roots?
Well, as much as Joe Biden. I know he's Scottish, isn't he, or is he Irish? Oh, they claim everything, don't they?
My grandparents were Irish.
Well, no, my natural mother. My natural mother? I mean, I always think of my mum and dad, my adoptive mum and dad, as my natural mum and dad, really. But if there we are, blood relative mum was turns out she's Irish, Southern Irish. But there's a slight problem in proving association, which is something to do with how adoptions happened. back in the days. But we know of her. You know my story about that, don't you?
Yeah. We could be related. I didn't know she was from Ireland. We could be related.
What, Mullins and James?
Well, that wasn't probably her name, though, was it?
No. Of course it wasn't. And James, of course, isn't, as you know, my real name.
It's not even your name.
Oh, God. Well, I have another name. I have an original birth name. Do you want to know what my original birth name was? This will make you laugh. I'll just give you my my surname. What was my original surname? Wiggins.
That was your birth mother's surname, was it?
Yeah. It's not very Irish, actually, is it?
No, it sounds like you should be riding a bike.
A bike?
Yeah.
Oh,
no. What's his name? Bradley Wigglins.
Bradley Wigglings. I don't think that's his name. But yeah, I'm thinking any way, Kev, any way that I can legally still cross over and work in Europe. Any way, Kev, any way.
I know. Well, I've had, funny enough, I must have had 6 or 7 inquiries about European weddings since the world started to open up again, and I've just said no to all of them. It's not. I just don't know what's going to happen. Brexit. I don't want to go and then get caught in, be like your DPD letters, get stuck in customs for 6 months on the way back.
Will we have to rescue you? Can I have my Kev back? He's over there. Look, just over there. Be like that. What's that? There's a brilliant film. It starred. This is no good. The guy that got left in the airport and lived there for about 7 years or something.
I want to say Lost in Translation, but it's not that, is it? It's
Lost in an Airport. It was Tom Hanks, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Tom Hanks. Yeah. And he didn't have Wilson with him, did he? It was. I'm gonna have to look it up now.
Look it up.
The Terminal.
The Terminal. You'll come back. Gemma will have married Jeff Goldblum at last. Right. Shall we crack on? Have you got questions?
I have. Yeah, I'll crack on.
You go first.
My newly promoted back to the top thread on Facebook.
I'm sorry. I didn't realise that's the way it worked. I thought you could put as many announcements as you wanted up there. But obviously,
not. Because it's been like that for 30 years on Facebook. But how would you know? Yeah. Timothy Binder, friend of the show, of course. Yeah. He says, "Question, mates. Why can't you save your custom recipes from XRAW Studio to an XT3 or earlier models?" So XRAW Studio is a free piece of software that Fujifilm supply that allows you to edit RAW files as JPEGs effectively, and you can also create your own custom profiles or custom recipes. And if you have an X-Trans4 sensor, camera, or above, you can create the recipes in XRAW Studio and then press a button, and it will automatically update your menu settings in your camera, which is really, really, really handy. However, if, as Tim quite rightly points out, if you have an older camera, you can't do that. You can suck the recipes off your camera to your computer so you can use them for editing, but what you can't do is push them back. And that's probably just because the sensors are different, the software is different, and when they did the big update to XRAW Studio, which was the end of last year, I think, they just did it for the new sensors, which probably, or the newer cameras, I should say, not so much sensors, because you can do it with JFX and stuff like that, which is probably all to do with the engineering of that software rather than the fact that, they thought, balls to it, we won't bother with the older cameras.
Right. I've never used that software.
It's pretty good.
I know. Well, you eulogize about it, don't you?
Yeah, it's really good actually. It's really ace for. We got another question coming up when I get to it about JPEGs though. But it's really ace for people who, want to get that JPEG, exactly the same JPEG look that a camera would produce, but on RAW file. Yeah. It's shot RAW. It's because you won't get it exactly the same in Lightroom or Capture One, regardless what anybody says. You won't get it exactly the same. So XRAW Studio is your friend for that. Little bit of a laborious route of doing it. You have to plug the computer into the camera or camera into the computer and all that stuff, which makes sense because the only way you can get that processing done is on the camera itself. But
Kev, if you've got like 300, 350, 400 images, in fact, you're likely to have even more on a card, aren't you? Because you don't do your culling. If you're having to do it all on the camera, this is pre-culling, isn't it?
No. So you do your culling, you drag your culled files into a new folder, and you point XRAW Studio at that folder, and then it just squirts those files back to the camera and brings them back to the computer again.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's not
But really, it's not aimed at that kind of processing, because if you were going to do all of your images like that, you might as well shoot JPEG or at least JPEG and RAW on the camera.
Yeah.
It's really aimed at people who, probably a little less file heavy, and just maybe want to try and get an exact look out of one particular image or a couple of images or something.
When you go back to shooting your gazillion weddings, when we all go back to shooting our gazillion weddings, are you still? I mean, do you use that because you want to get the JPEG look from your RAWs, or do you just go straight through Lightroom, Kev?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't really use JPEG so much these days. I used to use them all the time, just JPEGs, and then I went through a period of shooting JPEG plus RAW, and now, without wanting to be self-promotional or anything, but I use my RAW presets, and I've got them to a T. They do exactly what I want. So I shoot RAW, and I get a little bit more of a filmic look than I think I get from the Fujifilm cameras, and that's perfect for me. So yeah, I think going forward, it'll probably be the first season of weddings where I just shoot RAW to both memory cards and use the presets.
You're going to have to start selling your presets at the weddings as a kind of like, do you want to buy some presets? Make your pictures look really good, like mine.
Look what I got in my coat.
Yeah. Presets, anybody? Presets.
Black and white this side, colour this side. Come here for the utilities.
Yeah. Gee, look at this. I've got 113 unread notifications in LinkedIn. I was just looking into the email file there. Here's a personal question, Kev. Hang on. This question comes in from Mr. Wiggins in Berkshire, who writes to say, how do you keep on top of getting back to everybody across all the different platforms, Kev? I mean, this is LinkedIn. I don't use LinkedIn very much, to be honest. And I know if I were running a commercial business, commercial that is in terms of corporate photography, I'd probably use LinkedIn a lot more. But what with LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, all different messages coming from different places. Do you remember that? Who was it that said, don't, it was a YouTube film. He said, don't contact...
Tom Hanks. Was it Tom Hanks?
Not Tom Hanks. No, it wasn't Tom Hanks. There was one of our favourite photographers that was saying, don't contact me by this, or this. I only get back to you if you email. I think it was emailing in. Email me.
Yeah, I agree. I do something similar, really. And my Facebook Messenger has an autoresponder. My business page Messenger has an autoresponder. Says I will not reply here.
Yeah.
Go to my website and hit the contact form. I don't give my clients my mobile number so they can't WhatsApp me. I only get email. I get emails and that's it. I mean, my personal Facebook, I get messages on, although I've switched off the option to allow non-friends to message me, and they can request, but I never see those. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't really suffer with it. I used to suffer with it a bit more, but not so much now. It just all comes to email, and yeah, I'm happy that way.
I know when I hear people say they have a PA to answer messages, I think, what? You don't need one of those. And actually, it's getting to a stage where there are so many different messages firing into so many different places. Sometimes it's wood for the trees, Kev. It really is. And you think, well, what do I get to first? You're like a Jack Russell firing backwards and forwards. That one or that one? That ball or that ball? It feels a bit like that at the moment.
Instagram direct messages are the worst ones.
Yes.
I don't mind Instagram direct messages. They're always always nice, and I always reply to them. But they do stack up a little bit, and I do end up. I actually have something in my little to-do list that says. It's usually on a Tuesday. It says reply to Instagram DMs. So I'll just wait till Tuesday and answer them.
Are you still using your fancy, is it Todoist that you use? Or
Todoist, yeah.
Todoist, yeah, that software one. I saw McKinnon had released a film that effectively was talking about going back to using notepads the other day. And that you put your I don't know why it was an arbitrary sort of 8 figure, but the 8 things that you want to achieve in a day written down, apparently you're more likely to do it once you've written them down and tick them off.
Yeah, I think that's true. 8 things and, demigods of task lists and all that kind of stuff. We all put things down and then never do them. But yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with the fact that if you're sensible with your task lists, then, they're achievable, and always start with the stuff you don't like. Don't start with the stuff you like most. Do the stuff you don't like first, and then you get through it much quicker. That's definitely true.
I'd be spending my life doing accounts.
Yeah, well, that's what I do first thing in the morning. I do my bookkeeping, which of course has been very simple to do for the last 16 months. Yeah. I open up QuickBooks and then close it again.
I open it up. I do all the things that are going out and search for anything coming in.
That's right. Yeah. I did today. The only thing I put into my QuickBooks account was my bounce back loan payment.
Oh, Kev!
That's it. Yeah.
I know.
There we go.
I forgot about that. I did see it go out the other day. I thought, oh, look at that. There we go, Boris. Enjoy.
Yeah.
I know it's not Boris's fault. He didn't start it. He didn't start the fire, as the song goes, Billy Joel. Here's one from Wayne Lovies, long-time listener from Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. Oh, that sounds a lovely place, doesn't it, Labrador?
Yeah. Yeah.
Photography Daily and Fujicast, friend of the show, are my podcast mainstays. Well, thank you very much on behalf of both shows for that. Fujicast, when it was daily, was a constant COVID calming companion on my morning walks.
It was like years and years and years and years and years ago.
It does, doesn't it? I mean, it was only a year ago, Kev.
I know. I feel about years and years and years and years older, though.
Do you?
Yeah.
I've got a two-part question for each of you. First, what was your scariest or most embarrassing moment as a photographer? Wow. I've had heightened moments of anxiety when you can't find a church and there's 10 minutes to go till the blooming service is starting. I've had that a couple of times. I don't know if that's scary, though. I watched Dan Mace, funny enough. I've had a bit of a YouTube thing over the last 24 hours. I watched Dan Mace, who's a YouTuber who I think is he used to work for Casey, didn't he? And I think he has something to do with Pete McKinnon as well, but he put himself in a shark cage because he's making a film about sharks, and on his honeymoon, his wife. She hates sharks. She hates the ocean actually, but he decided to go on a day out into a shark cage with her in the sharkiest place you can find just off the coast in South Africa.
Sharkiest. Well, he is South African though, isn't he? That guy.
He is. Yeah.
People have been brought up with that kind of mentality. Sharkiest.
Well,
listen, I know for a fact the sharkiest place on the planet is Merthyr Tydfil.
The inland shark.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, you mean real sharks. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, scariest moments.
I've had a couple.
Go on then.
I've had, I'm not sure whether they're embarrassing or not. Scariest, probably, well, I've got two really that freaked the life out of me. One was when the old woman dropped dead.
Oh, I thought you might mention that one, yeah.
We've talked about that before, so we won't go into it too much. But anyway, an old woman.
No, but there's always new listeners, Kev, so go on, tell us again.
Okay, so an old woman dropped dead right in front of me. I said to her, come on, let's do this, because it was the tossing of the bouquet, and she just died. That was it, just died.
Well, that was awful, wasn't it?
It was awful, yeah.
I think
absolutely.
From memory, and unless I've embellished this in my mind now, with due respect to the lady that passed, didn't she have? I mean, she died with a drink in front of her and a fag in her mouth or something.
She did die with a smile on her face. Yeah,
she did. Yeah.
Yeah, bless her. She was very old as well. So anyway, that was awful. And then the other thing that happened, which was like years and years and years and years ago, I remember going to a wedding. I can't remember where it was now, but the bride had said to me, oh no, it wasn't the bride. The wedding planner had said, right, we've got these lovely stairs. This is the way the bride and her dad are going to come down, even though they were in another part of this big house. And so I was like, okay, fine, fair enough. I'll wait at the bottom of those stairs and get a couple of shots of them coming down. Didn't really hear anything. It was like 5 minutes after the ceremony was due to start. Normally you hear like the doors opening and the girls gaggling and things like that. Nothing. And then I heard it wasn't Here Comes the Bride, but whatever music they had as their processional song. And I was like, that doesn't sound good. And so, and the ceremony room was like the other end of the building. Off I trotted in my ill-fitted suit, my camera's knocking around my knees. And I just got there, I went sliding into the room, like a little kid on a newly polished floor, sliding into the room, got to the back of the aisle as she was getting to the front of the aisle with her dad, managed to get a couple of shots from the back. And I was like, the sweat pouring off me. My heart was palpitated. Everything was I was like, how the hell did this happen? And I spoke to her afterwards. I was like, we meant to come down those stairs. She said, oh, yeah, we were. We decided that, we couldn't be bothered. We'd just take the shortcut. I was like, great, brilliant. Well, don't expect any pictures of you taking the shortcut, that's for sure.
What about then? He said, what about your proudest moment, Kev?
Oh, proudest? What, at a wedding?
Yeah, well, not necessarily. It can be photography, actually, as a photographer.
I don't know really. I'm quite happy. I'm quite proud of lots of things that I've done. To be honest with you, which I think people should be. I'm proud that I published a book.
Oh yeah.
I'm proud that I stood up in front of 1,000 people in Argentina and showed them my pictures. I'm proud that I've Fujifilm did a exhibition of all my work in Tokyo. I'm proud of lots of things like that.
There's a little thing here, Kev. Hold on. There we go. The testimonials file. I'm proud of the letters and the cards in there because often things like that. And actually, are they mini proud moments? I don't know. The other day I had it's built around a sad occasion, but the other day I had a phone call from a bride whose wedding I covered almost exactly 10 years ago, and she said, well, her mother had passed, and there were a couple of pictures that she really needed as big prints. And then you sort of spent quite a long time talking about her day and the fact that, the photographs mean a lot to her and all those kind of things that sound like a cliche, but do make you feel proud to have done what you've done.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things that kind of thing should make you proud, should make anybody proud.
Whenever you make a difference. It's photographic, but I'm really proud of that. Those 3 months we did as a daily, and battling the COVID thing mentally as we did. I'm pretty proud of that.
Yeah, I can't remember that. Mind, I was just drunk.
Okay.
3 months. I remember my next door neighbour getting COVID, and he went, it's a bit like having a hangover for 2 days. I said, I think I've had COVID for 7 months.
God. I know. Are you double jabbed yet, by the way?
Yes, I am. I had it on Friday.
Oh, there we go.
I'm currently licking the microphone as we speak.
Well, that's right. That's your microphone. It's when you can lick the handrails at Swindon railway station. That's when I'll be impressed. I'm double jabbed. I'm officially a double jabber. Double jabber. There we go. Boom. Right. I think we've got time for one more from the Facebook group, from the post that was sadly relegated to the depths of thread space.
All right, this one's from Wallace Shackleton, and he starts this one by saying this one borders on heresy.
Right.
And he says, I love Fujifilm cameras, but I dislike the film simulations. All the simulations have various undesired qualities when all I want is accurate color. Do you think Fujifilm will ever introduce a raw into their simulations for people like myself and those who crave accurate colors, such as product photographers? And then he says, by the way, I'm opening up my own baked potato franchise from Neil called Crabbit Spud. That's great, Crabbit Spud. There's going to be a whole load of baked potato vans popping up around the world. Did I mention to you? I think I mentioned to you the other day. I've had an even better idea for our baked potato van. Or maybe we mentioned this on the show. I can't remember. Hot Spuds, like Hot Fuzz, but Hot Spuds. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
it's like that. Hot Spuds.
Raw.
Yeah. So the question, I think, essentially, because of course, when you shoot raw, there is no film simulation applied. Okay, so that is raw. So I'm a little bit confused by the question, I have to say. I'm going to work on the assumption that Wallace wants to shoot JPEG, but doesn't want a film simulation applied. Okay, that's what I'm trying to read into this question. In which case, you basically do have that with the Provia. What's the first one?
Standard.
Yeah, standard Provia. Although that is a film simulation, of course, it is meant to emulate the Provia film simulation. Film stock. So you're not going to get a JPEG that doesn't have any kind of film simulation on it. However, even when I used to shoot Canon back in the day, and I would shoot JPEG then, you still had those Canon profiles. I think. Well,
there's portrait, landscape.
Yeah. So I don't think there will be a JPEG that just has nothing on it, because effectively that's a raw file. And if it's the size of the raw files that you're concerned about, then obviously you can shoot compressed raw. It's lossless. So interesting thought process. I'm just maybe not reading it quite right.
Always write back to us, Wallace, and say, oh, listen, this is what I meant. But are all raw files on a level playing field? I mean, is raw out of a Canon, out of a Fujifilm, out of a Nikon, out of a, and so on and so forth? Do they have a different feeling to them? Is that what Wallace means? That that are all RAW files aren't equal.
No, they're not. RAW files are different from every camera. Even RAW files from different X-Trans sensors in the Fujifilm range are different. So yeah, you're never going to get like RAW isn't a. I mean, RAW is a standard if you like, but it's not like a standard that every single camera, if they produce a RAW file, if you shot 15 pictures on 15 different cameras of the same thing in RAW, you are not going to get 15 identical RAW images.
No.
You're going to get different depths, you're going to get different colors, you're going to get different saturations, and that's just the way it is. Yeah, I don't think there is such a thing as kind of just a blank. Even in video, when you're shooting log in video, you've got things like F-Log for Fujifilm, you've got C-Log for Canon. Presumably Nikon has one called N-Log, don't know, but presumably Sony's do S-Log, and that's their raw version of movies filming. And those are different. Those are very different. Even in RAW format, they look very different from other cameras. So that's all part of the process of choosing the camera you want to use, I suppose.
Wallace, if we haven't answered it quite like you expected, right back. We're always here. Right, Carl Hare. Last week we started talking about turning the video button on, and it's quite a subject actually. So we split it into two, and here comes part two. In part one of our chat, Carl, we closed with a real cliffhanger that is focusing. And we discovered you'd spent hours of 2020's original lockdown collating and notating every tracking sensitivity for every lens that you use for filming, a kind of a Bible settings, really, that you're going to share. So in part two, let's pick up with focusing again. A lot of people who make videos do choose to manually focus, and it's a habit I'm into still. There are, of course, tools that you can use to help you do this. If you don't have your dedicated Hollywood focus puller that we learned about last week, the tool that we have to our disposal is peaking, which is within the camera focusing settings menu. Now, I personally use red, though there are different colours you can choose, aren't there?
Yes, there's red, blue, yellow and white in the newer cameras. I generally use red as well in high. Yeah. It's nice and contrasty, and you can see it against most colours, most backgrounds.
Aspect ratio, 16:9, although 17:9, isn't that the standard smartphone ratio?
It is now, yeah, with the bigger screens.
Yeah.
Damn those pesky smartphones ruining our videography and photography.
So, yeah, so you do have different choices.
I generally use 16:9 because then I can use it on any monitor, TV, computer, smartphone, but it will crop the edges slightly. It's the most general, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I use 16:9. 98% of the time.
Right. Bit rate. Now, this is where a lot of eyes raise to the ceiling and maybe even glaze over. What? Oh no, Neil. Megabits per second. What? 100 to 200. This is as you said before, this is the data rate of the video file from the camera to your SD card in megabits per second. Is it important to know a lot about it?
It's not important to know a lot about it, but it is important to understand what it is.
Right.
Once it's generally set, I can guarantee you'll probably never change it. But to understand the relationship between the data coming off of the sensor and onto your memory card for shooting video might mean that you need to buy bigger, faster cards.
Right.
Depending on the camera that you shoot it with.
And of course, the higher you set it at, the more of a nightmare it's going to be in the edit, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're getting a much bigger file, more quality, and it will take a while to download, render, export, perhaps.
So for recording purposes, what would you set that bit rate at?
I think in the post I put between 100 and 200.
Right.
If I want extra quality, I guess, in air quotes, I'd set it at 200. Okay. If I'm just going to Wi-Fi it to my smartphone or put it to my Mac and then airdrop it to a smartphone or send it to the family, then I'd put it in 100. I don't need all the data clogging up the memory card.
And in that respect as well, while we're sort of around that menu-ish, dynamic range is another setting, which has always confused me, really, because there are various options here. You can have auto or... and I've always thought, if it says auto, stick it in auto, but that's not the case, is it?
Auto is very good, but having gotten into video a lot more over the last 2 or 3 years, I like to tell the camera what I want it to do. And there's nothing worse than, you've done this lovely video, you've sent it to your family, and then halfway through the shot, your, auto ISO changes, and it goes suddenly dark, 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 and then back up to bright, bright, bright. I think for people that want to just dabble, auto is fantastic because the camera can think a lot quicker than you can. But for people who want to take a little bit more control and that are maybe starting to get into content creation a bit more, or want to produce a short film or something like that, having those options of 100, 200 and 400 that will use a different base ISO as its judge for that. I generally use 200, which will use a base ISO of 400, and then that will try and maximize the amount essentially of editing power you have at the end to bring down the highlights, raise up the shadows, or play around with your in-camera settings.
So, I mean, ISO-wise, a lot of people get confused about what the perfect ISO is for video work. Now, you have said that you're prepared to work up to 1600 ISO. I don't personally go near that, but I normally stick around the 400 to 800. But you're suggesting here dynamic range 200, 400 ISO is kind of a bit of a magic formula.
That's what I've found useful for me. Your mileage may vary.
Yeah.
But with sensor technology, sensors now being ISO invariant or having dual gain ISO in some of the, Panasonic and Sony cameras now, you can shoot at a much higher ISO but get a much cleaner final image.
File format. I was comfortable with H.264. I knew where I was. And then somebody introduced something new, which is more compressed and takes longer to edit, but it's better. 265. Tell me the difference, because then we'll come on to movie compression as well.
Yeah, I was H.264 for everything. Yeah. And then I think Apple started HEVC, which is H.265.
Yeah.
In their JPEGs and video, it's just a lot more compressed. The file sizes are smaller, but it retains the quality. So it's a bit like lossless compressed in JPEG and RAW in photos. But because it's so compressed and so packaged up really well, when you put it into your editing suite, you need a really, really good computer to sort of unpack it.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time. It's a more efficient codec, though, in terms of the camera side. For most of the time, most of my shooting, I shoot in H.264, mainly because you get 8-bit in camera, I get 10-bit out to a recorder. So if I need to edit something or color grade, I can use the 10-bit footage because most of the time I use a recorder now. But if I do need something quick, then I've got the 8-bit footage. I can put the SD card straight into my computer and job's done.
So 8 and 10 bits, so you've entered another language now. 8 and 10, difference?
A lot of colors. 8-bit's great if you're not going to do any grading. If you're not going to edit your footage, dramatically increase exposure, decrease exposure. 10-bit's great if you're going to start color grading.
Right.
You get a lot more colors, you get a lot more latitude for editing. And you see this in cameras for stills as well. You'll see 14-bit, 16-bit, 12-bit. It's just the amount of colors and the amount of gradients in the color that you get.
And H.264 is
8-bit in camera, 10-bit external to a recorder.
Movie compression. There's a few here. Long GOP, F-Log. What's the other one?
All Intra.
All Intra. Yeah. What do I use?
Again, it depends what you shoot in. The two that you'll see in most consumer prosumer cameras are All Intra and Long GOP. All Intra saves every single video frame as a single frame. Right. A bit like shooting in burst mode in stills, if you will. Whereas Long GOP stands for long group of pictures. And what it does, it saves a keyframe every, I think it's 10 or 12 frames, and then sort of guesstimates what happens in between. Now, All Intra is good for shooting stuff that moves because you need each frame to build that movement through its motion. Whereas if you're shooting in Long GOP, the camera's got to go, well, did he move left? Did he move right? What am I doing? Did he go up? I've got to think about this. And it's got to guess what happens between each keyframe. So for anyone that's shooting anything that moves, sports, motorsports, kids running around, I would shoot with All Intra.
All Intra, yeah.
And if you're shooting a talking head YouTube video where there is no movement, Long GOP.
But are we talking lots of... What if you sort of move just slightly to one side and then the other side? Is that still a no-no for Long GOP, even if you're doing a talking head where your head is moving because there's natural movement in your sort of dynamic delivery to camera? Or is Long GOP still good enough for that?
Long GOP's good enough for that for short movements.
Right.
So if I'm moving my hands or I move from left to right in the frame a bit, it's absolutely fine. It's when you start getting into the sports... fast cars, runners, kids running around, they can be very erratic.
Yeah.
So that's when I would then switch over.
F-Log?
Oh, F-Log. I put confuse, befuddle, and perplex. It's one of those things that takes a while to sort of understand and to edit and grade and get the right settings and the right conditions to use it, which is why I sort of don't recommend it for people, really.
Film simulation modes. I've always thought you'd like a sort of flat profile to make editing more flexible, or colour correction, or grading as we're referring it to here. That's what the grading word is, colour correction in video. A Turner, a flatter profile. Is that the best colour profile to use if you want a decent amount of latitude when you're changing things in post-production?
Yeah, absolutely. If you are going to sort of sit down and go through editing and want to change colours, change your white balance, change your background colour, bring out the contrast, etc.
So you'd use a Turner then, would you?
So I'd use just a Turner straight out of the camera, no changes to my highlight, shadow, colour, maybe even turn it down.
Right.
I try and get everything right in camera as much as I can. I've done it with photography for years, shooting film. Grandad was a film photographer, shot a lot of stuff with the RAF, and he's always sort of instilled in me to get it as right as you can in the camera, which is why I come up with the little recipes.
Yeah.
So they're what I use most of the time, I guess. Again, your mileage may vary. You might not like it. You might want to be a bit more saturated, a little bit less contrasty.
In which case, you'd probably just choose standard then, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it'll give you a nice base to work from.
Yeah.
I think Eterna just gives you that more cinematic look because it's based on a cinema film.
Yeah, yeah. Tally light, that's simply the red light that flashes when you're recording. But you can do different things with it, can't you?
Yeah, so you can either turn it on, completely on. You can have it flash in, have it on the front, off on the back, vice versa. I generally set it up so that it's flashing on the front and back, just so that I know the camera's still recording. I've had it a couple of times where the camera stopped recording after 5 minutes because the memory card's run out or battery's gone or whatever, and I haven't noticed.
Now, that's a really important note, actually. So that's the way you'd set your tally lights up. But what happens if you're recording, and you're recording, say, a Talking Heads, and you've not been diligent and you have not noticed that there is not enough on this card? You've got 7 minutes of interview, but only 4 minutes of card, and it stops at the end of the 4 minutes. Does it maintain, does it remember what's on it, or have you just corrupted that because you weren't diligent enough to stop it before it got to the end of the card?
So it will just stop where it gets to and cut off the filming.
So although it's not great practice, you'll generally not lose all your footage. It'll just stop. Right, let's move on to another cool tool we have to help us as filmmakers get exposure spot on. Zebras is another, or zebras. All zebras are not equal, are they? There's a percentage level on this, just to add a layer of confusion. Zebras are what? They're a way of...
They're a highlight warning aid. So they tell you when you're getting close to overexposed. Okay. That's it. It's based on a scale brought out by some cinema boffins many, many years ago. 100% would be overexposed or bright white, no information left at all. I generally set mine at 90% or 85%, just so that I know I've got the latitude in the highlights to underexpose, overexpose. And it's great for skin tones.
Well, that's the camera sorted. Life is easy. But there is one thing we haven't tackled. Microphones. First up, the reason for having it as an accessory, Carl, and not just using the simple onboard mic that does come with each camera.
Yeah, so every camera comes with onboard mics. Generally, at the front of the camera, stereo mic, got two little inputs. On the Fujifilm cameras, it's either side of the electronic viewfinder hump. They're good. They're all right. But you do get a lot of wind noise. You can hear lenses autofocus. You can hear people breathing if they're too close. So if you haven't got anything else, they're all right. You can get by. Use them as ambient if you want to. But I would really, and you'll sort of attest this, Neil, from your background, audio is one of the things that people will never forgive. No. If there's bad audio, everything's bad. So that's why I would then go and spend some money on a half-decent external microphone.
And what sort of thing would you use? I assume that you're popping it into the hot shoe on the top, unless you want to get your microphone really, really close to the talent, of course, and you're using something like a lavalier, which you'll have to sync up later. But the only way of doing it without having to... Oh, actually, no, you could get a wireless, couldn't you? But generally, are you putting a shotgun on the top, a small shotgun?
Again, it depends what I'm filming.
Okay.
So if I'm filming behind the scenes from an event, I'll use a shotgun mic on the camera just to get the ambient noise from the event. If I'm doing an interview or a talking head like this, then you can do it two ways. You can either go wireless, or a long cable is the other way. The setup I've got at the minute in my desk is I've got a small mic stand on my desk behind the computer. I've got a little boom arm, and I'm actually using a Rode VideoMic Pro Plus, which is a shotgun mic, on a boom arm plugged in with a long cable into the camera, just so that I don't have any sync issues. I don't get drift in audio where you're a frame or half a frame out and it looks like you've sort of overdubbed the footage. But most modern day wireless stuff is very good these days. The Rode Wireless Go 2 is extremely very good. There are other microphones, Sennheiser do one, and there are some more cost-effective options as well now, which is nice.
But when it comes to choosing the levels, because of course you've got lots of options here, you could choose to just have auto level on, but that's probably not the right way to go, is it?
I think if you're going to start getting into audio and start learning, I think it's nice to be able to take control. As we said, for things like auto, ISO, and they're great as a starting point, but audio is one of those things that changes very dynamically from scene to scene, from footstep to footstep, from going inside to outside. And the camera does an okay job of trying to do its best, but from what I found, most cameras in the internal mic, even external mic, the auto settings aren't
too good.
It's not that good, but they're not able to change as effectively as you are.
Audio is something we could probably do an entire hour on, but hopefully that's helped you make a decision on why you would choose between having an external mic and using the one on board. There is one final bit, actually, which is filters, variable ND filters. Neutral density filters. Attaching it to the lens, I've always found a bit of a problem. I don't know whether you know of this, but the HMY Revo ring, because you're going to have a really expensive ND filter, but you're not going to have one for every single size of your lenses. So you can either use lots and lots of step up and step down rings, or I think this Revo ring is really good because it springs into place. But you definitely have you definitely work with an ND filter.
Yeah, I saw the Revo ring this week at one of the retailers that I was in, and it looks a fantastic bit of kit. Yeah, it's really, really helpful.
I invested in the Kickstarter, so I've got a few in the cupboard here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Variable ND. If I'm shooting outside, shooting with lighting, I think it's one of those things that you absolutely need in your kit bag.
Yeah.
Depending on the lenses that you've got, at the minute I'm using step up and step down rings just because it makes it easier for me. I've got two filters. I generally shoot with two cameras.
Yeah.
Most of the time they're a 77mm filter front. Sometimes you get an 82 or a 72 sometimes. Yeah. So as long as I've got those sort of three main step up rings, or step down rings, I'm all right. It's when you start getting into, I've got an 18 to 55, which is a 58mm. Yeah. I've got an MK 50 to 130, which is an 82. And then you have to have the whole bunch of step-up rings. So that's where that Revo ring would be really nice.
That's why you need a Revo ring for Christmas.
Oh, see? Shameless plug. Get one for Christmas. Have you got an Amazon affiliate link?
Along with your XH2. I told you I'd get one more mention in, at least of it.
Brilliant.
Good for my word. Carl, this has been brilliant. Thank you for this. You know, you could go into each one of these and pull it apart even further. But let's not frighten people to death. Let's have a good starting ground. And of course, you're in the Facebook group if people should want to ask more questions, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm in there most of the time. Video is one of those things that I think a lot of people should try more, just to try it out. It doesn't hurt. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to bite your hand off. You know, I'm a photographer that's come into videography. Yes. Just press the button. Do it. Take the leap.
Thanks to Carl Hare, Fujifilm product specialist. And we're so thankful that he agreed to set this out over the last couple of weeks here on this here show. But if you're still confused about how to film stuff and video is something that bamboozles you, then Carl has kindly said he's happy to answer follow-up questions in the FujiCast Facebook group. His post is in there, waiting for your feedback and further questions. Coming soon, Andreas Georgiadis is back for more Ask Andreas, where you get to quiz him about Fujifilm moving forward. Products already out, products that may be on your wish list. Thoughts and opinions and likes and wishes and wants. We'll post in the Facebook group again soon for that. And if you like your podcasts about photography, then have you tried as part of your weekly listening, Photography Daily, the Friday Photo Walk edition. Every Friday, I take a microphone and a bunch of your thoughts about photography out into the countryside. Sometimes their ideas, sometimes their feedback. sometimes questions, sometimes thoughts about projects. We feature the pictures that you make on your photo walks on the show page. It's your show, and we play in 1 to 2 minute inspiration islands from previous guests. It's the Photo Walk, part of Photography Daily, available wherever you get your podcasts. Right, back to your questions. Oh yes, Johan Borhead. Hello Neil, hello Kev, hope you're doing well. You can't love it all. I'm worried about this question already. What are some of your biggest gripes with the Fujifilm system? What do you miss? And what would you change if you could have one day making all the calls at Fujifilm? We did have a kind of a question, well, ish, like this when we had to design our perfect camera, didn't we, Kev? But yeah. I suppose he's gone one step back to say, well, what are the gripes you might have with the system now?
Well, I've got my X100V in front of me right now. I don't like the placement of some of the buttons on this camera. AFL, AEL button. It should be where the rear command dial is in my world, because that's what I use. Don't use the rear command dial for rear command dialing things. So I would prefer to have the AFL there. In fact, I mean, you can do it as a custom button. So I've allocated my rear command dial as AFL, but it's a dial rather than a button.
It's not so easy, is it?
Yeah, on the X Pro range, I want the AFL button. I did once. The AFL button is it's flush with the body, a little bit like the Q button on the newer cameras, and so you can't it's not tactile enough. You know, have you got your X100V there now?
Yeah, I have. Yep.
You see, the Q button is receded, so you can't feel it. It's not receded; it's flush.
Oh yeah.
If you have the camera to your eye, that Q button, you can't figure out. You don't know whether you've got your finger over it or not.
No, you don't. You're right.
And that's true of the AFL button on the X Pro as well. And I remember when we were doing some of the Q&A for the X Pro 2, and there was samples and stuff going around. They had the AFL button, and they placed it in the right place. And my message I sent back saying, it needs to be tactile. It can't be flush. And I sent a message back saying, all you need is a little nipple on it. That's all you need. And then many years later, I was having a chat with one of the engineers, I can't remember when, and he said, how we laughed at the Google translation of that email.
Oh my word, yeah.
All you need is a nipple. Anyway.
You definitely would have got a we shall consider off the back of that one. Kev's gone mad. That Mullins has gone mad.
They firmly put that in the we shall consider.
Bet they did.
It still hasn't got a nipple.
No, I know. Your camera is nippleless.
I know. It's awful. I know. In the world we live in as well, they should all be allowed a nipple. Yeah, things like that. Do
you want more flippy, for fear of annoying one particular person, more flippy screens, maybe?
No, I'm not fussed on flippies. I really like the flip screen in the X100V. I think that's perfect. It's nicely receded. Personally, I'd quite like the switch for manual continuous and single shot to be on the front of all of the cameras rather than on the side of some and on the front of others.
Yes, agree with that.
Yeah, that's it. I mean,
apart from that, it's perfect, says Kev.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we'd all like to have a never-ending battery, and I would love for the X100 range to have dual card slots. Don't think it will ever happen, not without it becoming a huge camera. I do wish that they would move away from using those horrible 2.5mm audio jacks for some of the cameras, which they seem to have done now for the kind of big boy cameras. Yeah, there is bits and pieces. You know, there are a few things that when you think about it, you do kind of think, yeah. I mean, on the original cameras, there was awkward stuff, such as if you had a tripod on, you couldn't change the battery and all that kind of stuff. And stuff.
Well, and also that blooming Q button on the X Pro 1.
Yeah, I mean the Q. If you look at the Q button on the X100V, it's so small, and it's right where your thumb would rest. Mm. I bet so many people click that by mistake. You know, you can allocate it, but...
Well, I don't know. I think it's because it's flush, I don't think you would. It's not easy to press, is it? I mean, I'm just having to... I'm wiping my thumb across the body now, and it's not accidentally triggering it, but yeah. Kev wants more buttons in different places.
Yeah, essentially. But no, actually I want less buttons. I prefer less buttons. I don't know, but yes, anyway. I just want a little black box.
A little eyepiece wouldn't go amiss. Actually, a little rubber eyepiece that that protrudes a bit more. Because if you're a lefty eye shooter with a 100V, I do find that the light, there's a little bit of light leak that comes round.
Yeah, I mean,
I find that a bit annoying.
are you a left eye shooter?
I am, yeah.
God, that's weird. And Irish. Bloody hell.
I'm not on my own with left eye shooting. There's a lot of people that do it. That's why rangefinders to me have never really made that much difference.
Yeah, no, it is a problem for left eyes. And if you're a left eye shooter, you have to turn off the touchscreen as well, because you end up deleting images with your massive noses.
That's true. You end up with nose marks on your screen all the time. Oh, that sounds hideous, doesn't it? But for me, actually having an XT is probably more like a rangefinder for me, because there is one eye that's not covered. Yeah. The rangefinder that never was.
But by and large, I love them. I think, if somebody, let's just say somebody who lived in Malmesbury was a wedding photographer, and which there is loads of them, but let's just say one of them on a Saturday morning said, I can't get to a wedding, can you do it for me? And here's my cameras. And they gave me something else. I would be lost. I really wouldn't have a clue. I mean, I could probably figure it out, but I would just be all 6s and 7s.
Yeah. How many?
I'm in tune with these cameras.
How many wedding photographers are there in Malmesbury? It can't be that many.
Hundreds.
No.
Hundreds of them. Yeah, taking my work.
There's plenty of work. Oh, no, there isn't. Right. We've got time for one from the Facebook group, and then we'll go for Book of the Week.
Okay, so this is one from Nanto Sealins. He says, in the last episode, number 186, Kevin talks about backing books on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
There's a lot of projects on there to wade through. Currently, 3,710 publishing projects. Yeah. Is there anything in particular you look for when trying to find books, or do you just sift through the lot? Normally, what happens now is Kickstarter sends me an email and says, "You back this, you might be interested in this." And they're usually pretty accurate, so that's typically what happens. Although occasionally I do go on there and have a little kind of. I normally just type in photo book, and there's all kinds of things. I mean, there's a lot of people who literally have zero backers because what they're trying to do is just doesn't make any sense. But then there's some really interesting ones, like the Melbourne one that I backed years ago. So years ago, probably about 3 years ago. Never even heard of him. And we reviewed that book. I can't remember the name now, but we reviewed that book probably 60, 70 episodes ago. But yeah, that kind of thing kind of just comes up. But you do end up, you have to kind of wade through the rough to get to the smooth, if you like.
I wonder what the percentages of books that do make effectively zilch and never see the light of day. I would imagine there must be quite a lot. Loads.
You've got to be pretty spectacular to get your books backed, your photo books backed, because a lot of them seem to be that they just, they're like family snapshot albums, which are fine, but you shouldn't be trying to make money out, or you shouldn't get other people to pay for the publishing of those. And so, they get nothing. And I don't know how Kickstarter works in terms of whether there's a fee for that, whether there's like a fine for not getting anything. I know obviously they take a fee at the end when they kind of take all the money away. Just have a look. Once you back one, you tend to get an email that says, you might be interested in this as well.
Because, I mean, there's a book in everyone, as we always say, but are there enough people that want to back your idea? It has to be pretty special, doesn't it?
There's definitely a book in Monty. He's had a good old gnaw on a load of mine.
Oh, poor old Monty. We haven't talked about him for ages.
Yeah, I came home last night and there was a half-empty packet of digestive biscuits down the side of the sofa. And I immediately, said to the kids, "Oh, come on, look, we've got to try. We've got to all try and put things back and all that kind of stuff." And they both looked at me very blankly. And it was probably Breezy. She's staring at me, licking her chops. She'd actually opened the cupboard.
Oh, Breezy had?
Yeah. Oh, she's a real...
No.
She's a real table surfer. She's awful.
Is she?
And she's got no manners whatsoever. She'll just take things that are left anywhere if she can get hold of them. But that's a trait of Whippets.
See?
Whereas Monty will let her do all the work, and then he'll just have whatever's left.
Attaboy, Monty, you're the one. Yeah, I know. You're gorgeous. Right, Book of the Week. This week it's Elliot Erwitt.
It is, but it's not an Elliot Erwitt kind of in a traditional, well, it is in a traditional sense, but it's not like one of his famous kind of tomes of a book. It's actually a very small A5 paperback by Thames and Hudson. So Thames and Hudson do a series of books called Photofile, Photofile. So there's a whole load of them, and they are, you know, they're like these little pocket books, but it's really, really nice introduction, if you like, into the work of certain photographers. And this one obviously is Elliot Erwitt, and the blurb, as it says, is Magnum reporter Elliot Erwitt, born 1928, is a witty photographer with an eye that is not always optimistic, but is always stylish. Sudden coincidences and chance encounters with objects and situations allow him to capture glimpses of the ridiculous or comical side of everyday events. Dogs are his favourite subject, an affectionate metaphor for human frailties. Erwitt's visual jokes become striking and pithy observations about life. So on the front cover, we have the very, very iconic picture of two sets of legs. One of them is a Great Dane, one of them is a woman's legs, and then you have that little tiny Chihuahua. I think it's a Chihuahua with a funny little hat on, which is a very iconic photo. But the good thing, what I love about this little book is, and I often kind of pick this up, is there's like an essay at the beginning, 3 or 4 kind of pages by Elliot talking about his work, and then literally it's just 60, 70 odd pages. It's just an image on each side with the title on the opposite side. So one image per spread, if you like, on the right-hand side, all black and white, of course, being Elliot, although he did do some fantastic colour work. So I'm just flipping. I just flipped to number 17, Ile de Lavant of France, 1968. And it's a picture of a man, and they're in a nature reserve, and he's bending over to pick something up. So it's not the most pleasant picture to start with.
But that's the humour, isn't it? This sort of light humour that he's so well known for, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So page 23, Key West, Florida. We've got so this is 1968, and we've got one of those beach trains, and you've got a couple of people jogging on the beach, and then you've got this woman. It looks like about 1,000,000 degrees. Everybody's in their kind of joggers and swimsuits and everything, and then there's this woman on this train who's in a really warm coat, got a baby clutched to her chest, who's in a bobble hat. She's wearing her sunglasses, and so there is that a real juxtaposition in his images, in many of his images. That kind of thing is wonderful. I feel like those kind of pictures are maybe what Martin Parr would have kind of broke his teeth on. Is that how you say it? Broke his teeth?
Cut his teeth.
Cut his teeth, that's it, yeah. Then we got some more poignant ones. Arlington, Virginia, 1963. So that would have been Kennedy's wife at the funeral. Presumably that shot is quite famous. Then, of course, we've got the segregation images that he did. Yeah, I mean, it's a real kind of mix of his work. It's not one particular genre, and doesn't seem to be one particular story either. But it's what I would call a real kind of introduction to some of his more iconic stuff. The stuff he did in Germany. He did a lot of work in Germany in the late 60s. You've got all these people exercising on the beach, which is really interesting. Because people still do this now. They still, especially the older generations, they go into kind of what we now call yoga, but I don't think they would have called it yoga in 1968. That's like a made-up word later in life, isn't it?
No, I think yoga was around then.
It's probably just called it exercising. People used to call not eating so much dieting, and now they call it keto and all this kind of different names and things.
Yeah.
So yeah, and there is a whole load of the dog stuff in there actually, which is possibly what he's most famous for, his dog images.
I always wonder. I mean, obviously with the race debate stuff, which was really important, and actually, and a lot of it was way ahead of its time with photographic observation in the way that he did it. That's for sure. But I always wonder with the humorous stuff that he does, the feet, the dogs, the dogs with a person sitting on the step where their head is replaced by the can't remember the breed of the dog, but I can see it in my mind.
It's a bulldog.
Bulldog, yeah. All those kinds of pictures. It would be fascinating, wouldn't it, to have been able to spend a couple of weeks with Elliot Erwitt, just to be with him as he goes out photographing, wondering how much he can come back with.
But if you hear him speak about, especially the Dogs Project, he says, like, it's not like I just went out and every single picture was brilliant. It was a long process, and he had to, for certain pictures, like the ones, I think it's around Battery Park in New York, where he was trying to get some images. He would look, watch, see the people who were walking dogs regularly, try and figure them out. And then he would, wait till the right time of the year so the light was good for the direction they were going. So it definitely wasn't staged, but was well thought out. So it wasn't just a case of wandering around town and snapping away and getting these great images. But of course, he was a photojournalist in real, in kind of his mainstay work was photojournalism. And one of my favorite ones is the one on number 59 in the book, Pasadena, California, 1963. And it's Lost Persons area. There's the sign. So it's at some kind of festival or park or,
I know this
carnival or something. And on this bench, there's a bench. You've got two women stood either end of the bench. Both of them look very 1960s. They've got those glasses with the pointy edges, and their clothes are very 60s. And they're stood on these benches. One of them's peering very concerned into the distance, looking for their little kid that's gone missing. The other one's stood there very nonchalantly with their arms crossed, almost like, well, he can bloody do what he wants, pain in the butt kind of view. And then you've got another woman sat on the bench with this baby. She's feeding this baby. But I love it. I love that, this lost persons area. Can you imagine that these days?
Yeah.
What do you mean you lost your child? Oh, my God, you're, the worst person in the world, and just like health and safety and all of that kind of stuff. I remember being lost as a child in Barry Island.
Barry Island?
Yeah, in Barry Island. Beach was packed.
Yeah.
I just let go of my mum's hand. I was probably 4 or 5 maybe, let go of my mum's hands. And I vaguely remember it. My mum tells me the story better though. And she just looked around and I was gone, and we now know as parents what that would feel like.
God, yeah.
Your heart just like drops out of your body. And my mum, bless her, is quite a panicky type person at the best of times. So she just went into a complete state of flux. And this woman put me on her shoulders.
Oh.
And I was saying, "Can you see your mum? Can you see your mum?" And in the end, I spotted my mum, like wherever it was. But I remember being launched up on these shoulders of this stranger and looking into this sea of faces on Barry Island Beach, and and kind of with the tears. I remember the tears running down my face. And you at that age thinking, I'm never going to see my parents again. Never going to see them again.
Meanwhile, when you saw her, they were packing up and saying, "Quick, let's get away from him!
That's
Quick
right.
now!" Yeah. We didn't want a child that had those weird eyebrows. He can't be ours.
Yeah, we can have that car we've always wanted now.
That's it. Oh, I bet she was pleased to find you though. I bet you got a proper telling off.
And actually, funny enough, back at Barry Island with Gemma now, this was a couple of years ago, we were wandering around Barry Island and with our kids, and there was this little girl, or was it a little boy, I can't remember, who just stood next to us. And Gemma said, "Are you okay?" And he said, I can't find my mum.
Oh, Kev.
What do you do now? So, like, I said to Gemma, right, hold on to him or stand by him, hold his hand, whatever. I'll go into. He'd wandered out of an arcade machine place. So I went in and I kind of said to a few people, is your child gone missing? But what was going through both of myself and Gemma's mind was, we can't just walk off with this child and look for the lost persons area, because there ain't a lost persons area anymore. And if you walk off with a child somewhere, that's it.
I know.
You're in all kinds of worlds of pain.
You
so.
are.
We just kind of stood there and didn't let him go anywhere. And in the end, I found the mum who came out of another shop. I think she was in like a souvenir shop or something, looking suitably panicked. I said, "Oh, are you looking for a child?" But of course, I didn't do any of the what's his name? How do we know it's your child or anything? Could have been anybody. But they went.
Yeah.
Hopefully it was his mum.
Well, I think the meeting between them probably would have told you that. We went on holiday. I only went on holiday abroad with my mum and dad once to Holland when I was about 3 or 4. And going across on the ferry, we were out on the top deck or whatever, coming into the port, and the ship's horn sounded. And I apparently ran. I was so taken by this sound that was really loud. We must have been right next to the funnel. I ran right round the deck, the other side. Mum and Dad completely lost me. And they came running after me. Have you seen a child? Have you seen a child? I remember them telling me that story, which I would imagine they'd be thinking, is he gone overboard?
Yeah.
God.
That'd be even worse.
God, yeah.
Oh, just it's awful, isn't it? There's that TV show, wasn't it? Was it called Lost or Taken? I just refuse to watch things like that.
Oh, no, I can't see things like that. Did we answer that question? I can't remember now.
What was the question?
I can't. Were we...
No. We were doing a book review.
Doing a book review. Where are we, Kev? Oh, it's all falling apart. Oh, it really is. Quick, I need another one of these. I'm going to run around the other side of the funnel and just hide.
So the
Book review.
The book of the week was Elliot Derwit,
Yes.
which is the Thames and Hudson's photo file version. Little A5 little booklet. Get hold of it. It is still currently available from all good booksellers, independent and not, for around about £9.
Yeah. Good. James, this is a long question, Kev. You ready? Dig in. Okay. Have you got a bed? You might need it. James Sauls. Hope all is well with your families. It's a little bit of rambling. I mean, even he said that in his question. My daughter started infant school last September, and as I'm sure a lot of us have done, we've offered to help the school with photography. Oh, don't do that, James. You'll be in all sorts of trouble. Which is nice if you can do it, yes, if required at any point. And they've now reached out, not for photography, but to video the Year 2 leavers early in July. So this is only a week or so away. Put on a short performance as parents are not allowed to the school to watch. Yeah, we've got the same thing happening this year. We can't go and see our little one Thomas in his last play at primary school. We can go and see Jack but that's a bigger hall at secondary school, but we can't. So it's being videoed. I only turned the dial to video for the first time a few months back, but I think it'll be fine. I've done a few little projects, so I think I'm okay, but I'd like some advice on the sound of it. The projects I've done have been music videos for local musicians where I've simply dropped the audio track over the top of the video in Premiere. So I've not really recorded any sound professionally yet. You've done a bit of that, haven't you? You did that festival in Malmesbury, didn't you, Kev? Did you do that the same way?
Yeah, so the long players. So I recorded everything with reference audio into the film, into the camera, and then the sound engineer, because they had a proper sound engineer, who then edited the tracks. And he sent me the finished edit. So we did a clapboard at the beginning, and it worked perfectly, absolutely perfectly, brilliant, perfectly synced.
Well, this is slightly different in that they've got 67 to 8-year-olds, not 67 to 8-year-olds, 67 to 8-year-olds in various group sizes, singing and putting on little routines. How do you mic this without putting a microphone on all the kids? I don't even have a microphone at the moment, says James. But I have put a little by, as I was intending to buy one or two once this pandemic is over. I'll bring that purchase forward to help the school. The school had planned to record on an iPad, so almost anything will be an improvement. But I want to make it the best I can to invest in some gear that I can use in the future for audio work. Any advice on microphones or microphone? Budget's around £200. I'll be recording the kids on a roaming XH1 and static XT3. Right. Well, this is going to be really difficult because what you need is those special microphones that they put on stages that are what's called omnidirectional. That means their pickup is in all directions, and they're called boundary mics. Or you can get also hanging microphones, but they're often a bit more directional, and they point to the left and the right or the centre. But boundary mics are the solo ones. Well, you'd need a couple, I guess, but they're not cheap. Certainly not £200 for a decent one. The trouble is, to get the best audio, you need that pickup to be as close to their mouths as possible. So putting down a microphone that's going to pick everything up, it will literally pick everything up, and that includes the bird sounds outside, any lorries going past, coughs, and blah, blah, blah. And children do like to talk during performances as well, don't they?
Yeah, and go to the Wii.
That's right. Can I go to the Wii, Mrs. B?
Miss, I need to go now.
It is picking it all up. It's a really difficult one, this.
Yeah.
I mean, a Zoom H1 that you've ordered, and that's not going to... I mean, you can put that at the front. It's going to do I suppose you could put it on a small... If you had two H1s and you had them about 3-4 meters apart, so they're not... And then they've got XY pickup, haven't they? So you point them outward towards the children. That's going to probably do the best on a budget, because I think you'll be able to get two probably for £200. The best on a budget that you could possibly do will be those two H1Ns with their XY pickups pointing out slightly 45 degrees, or maybe slightly less, one left, one right, And I think that's the best you're going to do. Put them on if you can get a small tripod, lift them up so they're not on the ground. Lift them up so they are pointing loosely towards mouth level.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the H1Ns now. They don't seem to be available at all on Amazon right now. So, but yeah, they used to be about 150 quid each, didn't they? Something like that.
They've come down an awful lot, actually. Maybe that's why they're not available. Everybody's bought them up. There must be some gear for you, gear for music.
The other thing I was thinking of, and this is much more of an investment, is the Zoom H5s. So the Zoom H5s do also have the XY stuff going on. They're far more powerful, and they've got a tripod mount at the bottom, at the flat part of the back, I should say. So you could stick a couple of them pointing towards them, make sure you get your XY parameters correct, stick them on a tripod in front of the group, and I think you'll get reasonably good audio.
You got the same tripod mount, by the way, with an H1?
Underneath, on the back?
Yep.
Is it on the back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Underneath, and an auto level, which is reasonably okay, actually, on an H1. But, I mean, I think what you're suggesting is good, but that's way over his budget.
Yeah, well, if it ain't good enough, it ain't good enough. But, if you want to make it good enough, then you got to make it good enough.
Okay, thanks for that. Can I quote you on that?
The H6s, the H5s are no longer available. So now they brought out this H6 thing, which looks like something out of Star Wars. It's got a nice little digital screen and everything, but they're 350 quid.
James, Gear for Music, which is, I think, based in the UK. Gear 4, it's the number 4, gear4music.com. I sounded like one of those auto things on a phone then, gear4music.com. They have some available. They're £90 at the moment.
There we go.
H1N, 20 in stock as I'm looking at it.
Get them all. Get all of them.
Yeah, buy them all up. Then sell them at 150 quid, as Kev suggested. I think those two microphones, they would do it. You need to lift it. Those little tripods you can put into the bottom, though, they're usually on those sort of small flexi tripod stands, little one. You really want to lift it up higher. Maybe get I tell you what, you get a music stand. Get a couple of music stands. They're usually the right height. And strap these with a bit of gaffer tape onto each. And also, if it's outside, make sure you get one of those fluffy cat things. Oh, yeah. Oh, is it going to be outside? Oh, that'll add even more difficulty to it. Then you get the aircraft as well. I'm pretty sure this will be inside because that's why they're not letting parents do it. Okay. Yes. Yeah, I forgot that bit. Yeah. Okay. So there we go, James. Solved. And he also had an electric quote from Kev, which I'm going to put on a T-shirt. What is that? Well, the one you did just now. If it ain't good, it's not good. If it's good, it ain't good, it's good. And that's good. Well, it's true, isn't it? It is true. And I think on that note, that's all we need on that bombshell. Thank you very much for all your questions this week into the show. We'll, of course, put all the links up for you so you can see the book of the week. Try and put that Gear for Music one up. We'll remember to do that as well. So, but don't go and get all of them yet. Let James get the couple that he needs. Also, thank you to our guest Carl Hare for the last couple of weeks, who's been superb. And of course, you will find that thread in the Facebook group. Although you might have to search for it because Kev's obviously gonna need the space in the announcements so that you can send in your questions, because we always need them. If you have any questions for the show, click at fujicast.co.uk. Or, of course, you can send them in via the Facebook group. There's two ways to do that. Thanks very much for your company this week. We'll see you in the show notes as ever and in the Facebook group. And see you next week. Bye, Kev. Bye.
The FujiCast is an independent Loading Zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.